recording this video a bit in advance, but at the time of recording this, the Aces could win the playoffs, sweep Phoenix, on the day that this video comes out. So I thought it'd be a good time to discuss the state of the WNBA. Not to mention the whole CBA thing that's happening right now, but we'll talk about it. It plays a big part in this video. But particularly whether we are in the league's super team era right now. So here's the quick picture, right? In the last couple of years, some rosters have been getting stacked with MVPs and all WNBA talent. Think about A'ja Wilson's Aces on one hand, and we also have the New York Blvd assembling Breanna Stewart, Jonquel Jones, and Sabrina Ionescu. Playoff run notwithstanding. So let's go back to how we got here, because super teams don't start on the court, they start in the CBA and the salary cap. So the most recent CBA collective bargaining agreement was signed in 2020, and it was supposed to run until 2027. However, as you might have seen in the news recently, players opted out of the agreement last year in 2024, and so now there's a deadline of October 31st, the end of this month, to create a new agreement, or else players could go on strike. I think work stoppage is the official terms, but that's a whole other video. Watch this space at the end of the month and into November. If there's no new CBA, we'll have to get into that. With the 2020 CBA, the current one, makes super team building a lot more doable for franchises. For one, the team salary cap jumped from just under $1 million in 2019 to $1.3 million the very next season, and the maximum salary, Supermax, I think, for players went from $117,000 a year to $215,000 per year, with year-over-year cap growth worked in. So with bigger top-end limits and steady cap increases, it's more realistic to fit 2 or more star players in your roster and still field a rotation. By the way, this season the CBA numbers were up to, the team cap was $1.5 million, and I think the Supermax salary was just under $250,000. And another change in the CBA in 2020 was how free agency worked. So that CBA really reined in the core tag, which is the WNBA's version of a franchise tag, which basically, if you're not familiar, is a tool that teams use to retain a player who's set to become a free agent by sort of forcing them, giving them a 1-year guaranteed contract for the upcoming season that looks at their previous salaries and all that. Under the old rules, under the old CBA, a player could be cored, could get the core tag up to 4 times. The 2020 deal cut that down to 2. I think the first year was 3, but for the sake of conversation, let's call it 2. So fewer core years, fewer years under the franchise tag means that a player reaches true free agency much sooner. And it's harder for a team to keep, an MVP caliber player in a perpetual tag and hold pattern. It's easier for elite players to choose to link up in one city. I mentioned New York at the top of this video, and I think it's an excellent sort of example of that. That's how we ended up with clusters adding Jonquel Jones on a trade in 2023, and then they signed Breanna Stewart and Courtney Vandersloot in the same window. Now, at the same time, the CBA in 2020 formalized some new team and league marketing agreements, which are basically add-on deals for appearances and marketing work that sit outside of the standard salary definition. So they created legitimate and debutters. We talked about making a video about the Kawhi Leonard Toronto re-signing controversy. That's definitely an upcoming video. But with these new marketing agreements, there were new legitimate ways to gain compensation outside of the salary cap. So not only do players, maybe in bigger markets, where deals are generally more lucrative, like New York, right? Like if a company is advertising, marketing in New York, they'll have a bigger budget than in, I don't know, what's the smallest market? Let's say the Fever, if Caitlin Clark wasn't there. Not only can they make more money outside the cap by going to those cities, you see what I'm going with this? Players going to bigger cities are likelier to make more money from marketing deals. It also helps a star player make more money even if she takes a smaller cap number to go and play with the other big names. And again, New York is the perfect example of that. Breanna Stewart accepted way less money than she could get in 2024 to keep that New York super team math on track. So all this to say, the 2020 CBA, which is current as of making this video, won't be current for long, it really made the league more super team friendly. Teams went from being able to afford one MVP to having a cluster and a bench that still works. And I'm really curious to see what changes will be made in this new CBA and whether the momentum will shift, whether super team building will be slowed down by the new CBA. I tend to think that the new CBA might just accelerate the growth of super teams, because in a lot of ways the same ideas that make building super teams easier are also appealing to individual players who, salary is constantly a big discussion in the WNBA, and the ability to increase salaries for everyone also makes it easier for super teams to exist. But now back to where we are now. So the Aces won the title in 2022 and then repeated in 2023. Again, they're likely to win again this year in 2025. And they did it with a core of Wilson, Jackie Young, Kelsey Plum, and Chelsea Gray. And that second ring in 2023 made the Aces the first back-to-back champs in the WNBA in over 20 years. And then, of course, New York fired back. Last year, the Blvd knocked out the Aces in the semifinals, and then they won their first ever WNBA title. And that was sort of the, this is an era moment where we're seeing two mega teams trading blows year to year. Again, we don't need to dwell on New York's postseason run this year, mostly because it doesn't fit my argument. And I'm the captain here. But we can always say that Breanna Stewart was injured, and let's just sweep this one under the rug, shall we? So, is this good for the league? If we are, in fact, in a super teams era of the WNBA, is this good for the league? And ultimately, I think it comes down to how you think about parity, right? So, is it boring to have powerhouse teams that win every year? Or, on the other hand, do these giants force everyone else to shape up and form a playing identity? And we still get upsets, we still get drama. This year's playoffs have been wild. I mean, look at Phoenix, who knocked out New York and Minnesota. And I think generally we look back fondly on dynasties and the rivalries that dynasties help build. Like, from a storytelling point of view, it's, even in the NBA, it's interesting to look back on and think about those powerhouse teams in the moment, especially if those teams aren't the one that you support. It can be quite painful, it can be quite boring. Side note, I talked on live stream the other day about how I need to get good at EAFC, like playing the whole team like regular game mode. And so I went on for like my first ranked match. I don't even think it's ranked because it's when they establish what level you're at. And I went in with Newcastle, which I knew was a stupid thing, but then my opponent played with Barcelona, and I was like, oh, what's the point? Anyway, back to this WNBA video. As I said, the new CBA that is, like it or not, coming up, there's rumors that top salaries could move dramatically higher, like several hundreds of thousands of dollars up, and that the new team salary cap could be in the $4 to $5 million range. And if that happens, we'll see a new phase of team building, and that's either going to tighten clusters of superstars or spread the stars around as more teams will be, in theory, on paper, able to afford them. The other question is, what happens if expansion in the league outpaces concentration? So this year the league added the Valkyries. More teams are on the horizon, the tempo are coming. And I mean, the numbers support a continued expansion of the league. And new franchises tend to redistribute the center of gravity a little bit once they settle into a league. Personally, I still think that at least in this decade, like the next 10 years, or at least the last 5 and next 5, money still speaks louder than expansion. But it's still something to consider when we ask whether we're in the super teams era, because I don't know that let's call an era at least 10 years in a league. So if we're 5 years into a super teams era, we need the next 5 years to also be a super teams era. And in theory, in the next 5 years, expansion is what could slow it down, but I don't think that'll be the case. How long has Siri been listening to me? So now, I want you to let me know in the comments whether you think we're in a WNBA super teams area. I made it the whole video without saying area. I swear to God. In the video that I posted on Monday of this week, where I was talking about the El Dorado era in Colombia, I was like, I'm gonna try just so hard to make it through this video without saying area instead of era, and I did fine. It had to happen. It had to happen. I thought I'd shaken it, but I was just waiting to jump out at me when I least expected it. If this video helped you unwind before the last 30 seconds, drop a like so that other late night sports nerds can find it, and I'll see you in the next one.